The spectacle of gladiatorial combat was initiated by wealthy Romans over 250 years before the birth of Christ, as part of the ceremonies held in honor of their deceased relatives. Later, these games became separate events sponsored by Rome's leading citizens in order to enhance their prestige. With the decline of the Republic and the rise of the Empire, gladiator games were appropriated by the emperor. The primary purpose of these life-or-death duels was to entertain the multitude of spectators jammed in the arena. And although some freemen elected to live the life of a gladiator, the majority were slaves, captured during the numerous wars Rome fought to expand its territory. The prospective gladiator received extensive training and became proficient in a particular mode of combat and use of specific weapons such as a sword, net, or three-pronged spear known as a trident. The game began early, lasted all day, and was usually divided into 3 presentations. The morning was devoted to the display and slaughter of animals, many of them exotic beasts gathered from the far reaches of the empire. Lions, elephants, giraffes, and other rare animals all played a role in a display of butchery designed to advertise the diversity of the far-flung empire and Rome's mastery over Mother Nature. The morning session was followed by a lunch break in which patrons could leave the arena to satisfy their hunger. Those who lingered were entertained by the execution of common criminals. An attempt was made to match the method of the condemned person's death with the crime committed. Those who had murdered were thrown unprotected to wild beasts. Those who had committed arson were burned alive. Others were crucified. Criminals also provided the fodder for entertainment in the reenactment of historical naval battles in which the arena was flooded and the condemned forced to play the role of the doomed crews of the enemy ships. The afternoon was devoted to the main event, the combat of the gladiators. Typically, gladiators with different specialities were pitted against one another. Much like a modern boxing match, the duels were governed by strict rules and overseen by a referee to assure these rules were followed. Music provided an accompaniment with the band varying its tempo of its play according to the action of the arena. The crowd would ultimately decide whether the loser would live or die. The other day, I chanced to drop in at the midday games, expecting blood and wit and some relaxation to rest men's eyes from the sight of human blood. Just the opposite was the case. Any fighting before that was nothing. All trifles were now put aside. It was plain butchery. The men had nothing with which to protect themselves, for their whole bodies were open to the thrust, and every thrust told. The common people prefer this to matches on level terms or request performances. Of course they do. The blade is not parried by helmet or shield, and what use of skill or defense? All these merely postpone death. In the morning, men are thrown to bears and lions. At midday, to those who were previously watching them. The crowd cries for the killers to be paired with those who would kill them, and reserves the victor for yet another death. This is the only release that the gladiators have. The whole business needs fire and steel to urge men on to fight. There was no escape for them. The slayer was kept fighting until he could be slain. Kill him, flog him, burn him alive, the spectators roared. Why is he such a coward? Why won't he rush on the steel? Why does he fall so meekly? Why won't he die willingly? Unhappy as I am, how have I deserved that I must look on such a scene as this? Do not, my Lucilius, attend the game, I pray you. Either you will be corrupted by the multitude, or, if you show disgust, be hated by them, so stay away. During these same days, Pompey dedicated the theater in which we take pride even at this present time. In it, he provided an entertainment consisting of music and gymnastics contests, and in the circus, a horse race and the slaughter of many wild beasts of all kinds. Indeed, 500 lions were used up in 5 days, and 18 elephants fought against men in heavy armor. Some of these beasts were killed at the time, and others a little later. For some of them, contrary to Pompey's wish, were pitted by the people when, after being wounded and ceasing to fight, they would walk about with their trunks raised towards the heaven, lamenting so bitterly as to give rise to the report that they did so not by mere chance, but were crying out against the oaths in which they had entrusted when they crossed over from Africa, and were calling on heaven to avenge them. For it is said that they would not set a foot upon the ships before they received a pledge under oath from their driver that they should suffer no harm. Whether this is really so or not, I do not know. After completing the new forum and the temple to Venus, as the founder of his family, he, Julius Caesar, dedicated them at this very time, and in their honor instituted many contests of all kinds. He built a kind of hunting theater of wood, which was called an amphitheater, from the fact that it had seats all around without any stage. In honor of this and of his daughter, he exhibited combats of wild beasts and gladiators. As for the men, he not only pitted them against one another singly in the forum, as was customary, but he also made them fight together in companies in the circus, horsemen against horsemen, men on foot against others on foot, and sometimes both together in equal numbers. There was even a fight between men seated on elephants, 40 in number. Finally, he produced a naval battle, not on sea or on lake, but on land. For he hollowed out a certain tract on the Campus Martius, and after flooding it, introduced ships into it. In all the contests, the captives and those condemned to die took part, yet some even of the knights, and not to mention others. The son of one who had been praetor fought in single combat. Indeed, a senator named Fulvius Sepinus desired to contend in full armor, but he was prevented, for Caesar deprecated that spectacle at any time, though he did permit the knights to contend. The patrician boys went through the equestrian exercise called Troy, according to ancient custom, and the young men of the same rank contended in chariots. He was blamed, indeed, for the great number of those slain, on the ground that he himself had not been sated to the bloodshed, and was further exhibiting to the populace symbols of their own misery. But much more faith was found because he had expended countless sums on all that array. In order that the sun might not annoy any of the spectators, he had curtains stretched over them made of silk, according to some accounts.